Creative language, interesting classes. So this is another way to make your classes more interesting, less boring, and keep your athletes engaged for longer. And it also gives you a challenge and keeps things interesting for you as the coach. So let's get into it. In this session, we're going to why do we need to be creative with our language? How do we get creative with our language? And then I'll give you some homework associated. Creative language. So why? Well, we need to get creative with our language because when we hear the same thing repeated over and over, we can turn a deaf ear. So basically, if I keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, you will eventually just switch off and you won't even know what I'm saying anymore because you just don't listen. All right, that's the thing. We just turn off and we just don't listen anymore. If we hear something new, it then sparks an interest and catches our attention. So if we're in a class and we're coaching deadlifts and we go through the same points of performance all the time, people are just going to turn deaf to it. Whereas if you say something new, everyone will just go, what did he say? Oh, that's different. I never heard that before. And now they're focused on what you asked them to do. So it makes the same stuff less boring, and it's good for the coach and the athlete. And the challenge is the coach to keep thinking and not get lazy. So we can get lazy when we see deadlifts, like, okay, cool, I know the point of performance, bang, 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 I'll just coach the same thing as always. Whereas if we get creative with our language, it gives us a challenge. It keeps us interested in our jobs for longer. Yes, it is more difficult, 100%, but it gives us something to do. It gives us some challenge to take on. It gives our athletes a little bit more interest. If you want your athletes to be bored and you want to be bored, keep doing the same thing you always do. If you want to keep it interesting and challenging, think of new things and new ways to say. Okay, so that's why. How? We can use 4 things, right? There's loads of different ways in doing this, but here's 4, right? So we can use alliteration, we can use real life references, we can use graphic cues, and then different ways to say the same thing. So let's get into these in a little bit more detail. Alliteration. This is the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. Sorry, I made a mess of that. That is just a definition straight from the dictionary. Alliteration is the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. So there's an example. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. I didn't do that right. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Oh my God, that's hard to say. Try and say that. All right, so you see, last thing there is get a giggle, right? So if you said that in a class, you're going to get a giggle, but you're not going to get good movement. So you got to think about how you link it to movements, right? I wouldn't be thinking about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different words beginning with the same letter. I'll be thinking more 2 or 3. But here, look, you can do whatever you want. Make it creative, get a giggle. Makes your coaching more memorable. Makes it easier for people to remember what you want them to do. It emphasizes the coaching point, and you can also use it to create a label. All right, so that's alliteration. Here's some examples. Position, power, pull. So that could be, I remember I used this a while ago for a clean, and I talked about getting to the right position of the contact point. That's where you then have the power from the legs, and then you pull the arms. So the alliteration was position, power, pull. I coached position first, I coached the power second, I coached the pull third, and then stuck it together. And it's like, remember, position, power, pull, position, power, pull. And it was just easy for them to remember. It was easy for me to coach and cue, and it made it more memorable. All right, tight torso, some that we can talk about. It's T and T, tight torso. We can talk about it for deadlifts. We can talk about it in the setup of the clean. We can talk about it in a squat position, like you name it. In a plank, you can talk about it anywhere you want. But then it's just a little bit of alliteration for you. Strong shoulders, again, strong shoulders can be used anywhere, in the setup position, in the finish position, you name it. Again, you can use that anywhere you want, but it's just about adding some alliteration in somewhere. Powerful pull, again, similar to position, power, pull, but it's actually putting a bit more emphasis into powerful. So it's adding that word at the start, which it just allows it to add a little bit more. And then solid squat, same thing. Solid squat, long legs. You see this guy in the weightlifting here, the Chinese weightlifter. You can use long legs for triple extension. Instead of saying triple extension or extend hard or whatever you might say, long legs is a different way of saying it. Like, everyone knows what long legs look like. And if you demonstrate something like that, you can see that he's got long legs here. Here you can see that he's got long legs in the extension. And then active arms. We talk about active arms with anything again, the overhead position of an overhead squat, a snatch, a jerk, a push press, something like that. You can use active arms. All right. Or you could use active arms in a butterfly pull-up, for instance. Okay, so that's alliteration. Creative language then, real life references. So real life references to help with the understanding of positions or points of performance. It makes it more relatable to people. So if I said to you, sit on a bar stool, you could then think about, oh, well, if I sit at a bar, how high the bar stool is? Oh, that's where I want to catch position in my clean. Just sticks an image in somebody's head. It's a real life reference that thing might actually do. Pushing somebody or something. So if you push the car, push the trolley, push the person, you could link that to a wall ball throw, and you could talk about it being the elbows. You don't want the elbows out at the side when we're doing a wall ball. You want our elbows tucked in. The same if you want to push somebody with maximum force, you want your elbows tucked in the side, not out here, out wide. So you could talk about pushing somebody. Carrying the shopping, obviously farmers carries straight arms. You don't want bent arms. If you think about carrying the shopping with bent arms, your biceps are going to burn out really quickly. So you want to have the arms nice and long. Looking over the neighbour's wall for double unders. So like that just, it's a real life reference. Like you're going to be good on your tippy toes looking over the wall with your legs straight, as opposed to jumping or bending your knees or tucking your knees up in front of you in a jump. Like when you jump to look over your neighbour's wall, you end up getting really, really straight, right? So double unders. Train tracks for split jerks or lunges. So the train tracks, we want to make sure feet are wide, not narrow. Paintbrush, so contact on the clean. So when we make contact on the quads with the clean, we want it to paint the legs. So think about painting some brush marks down your legs, red paint or whatever it might be. To brush, you want to be just stroking and not banging it like a hammer, all right? So it's just real life references that people might be able to link to. So like painting, they see train tracks, looking over their neighbour's wall, like all these types of things are things people do in real life. So it's like, can you link it to what they do in the gym? Graphic cues. Say things that put an image in people's heads. This can make it easier for them to understand. So like your nipples have headlights. So if you said your nipples have headlights and you said you want the lights to shine forward, or you want the light to shine where your body moves, on a deadlift, you want the lights to track the floor and track the wall and track the floor and track the wall. Or if you want your headlights pointing straight forward as you dip down in the jerk, you don't want them to drop down towards the ground. You want them always on the wall. Nipples have lights. Crush a nut in your butt. So squeezing your bum so hard you're going to crush a nut in it. Just puts a little image in somebody's head. It's like, oh, there's a nut in there. Squeeze that as hard as you can. Like oranges under your armpits for deadlifts or something like that, you know. Don't crush the baby's hand. I use this one for floating deadlifts. If you've ever done a floating deadlift or a floating clean deadlift or a floating snatch deadlift, you want to get like just a fraction off the floor. So you want to say, imagine there's a baby's hand under your plate. You don't want to crush the baby's hand. Now you've put an image in the head as a baby's hand. I'm not going down to the floor. And it just like creates a little bit something different. Foundations and support beams of a building. So if you think about, let's say the split jerk, the footwork of the foundations, right? And then when you catch the bar overhead, the arms are the support beams. So you could say foundation support beams of a building. Like that's what your house or what your split jerk could be, and you could use that and link it in to how you coach. Body is an arrow. So if the arrow's pointing directly up, that's where the barbell is going to go. So if you think about the dip and drive phase of a push press or a push jerk, you don't want the body to dip forward. So you don't want the arrowhead pointing forward as you dip. You want to have the arrowhead pointing up all the time because that's where you want the most force to go. So dip down, dip, drive straight up. So the body is an arrow. So they're graphic cues. All right. Okay. Different ways to say the same thing. The points of performance are the points of performance. Like when we have the points of performance for a movement, they don't change. They're the same thing all the time. So we hear them all the time. So if we can change how we say it, it makes the same points of performance different. All right, I know I mentioned this at the start, and now we're going to get into a little bit more on how we can do that. Okay. So if you think about the deadlift setup position, so this is the deadlift setup position. James Hobart here, I just took this off CrossFit, and the shoulders are slightly in front of the bar. So let me get my cursor up. You can see the shoulders are slightly in front of the bar. Okay, so shoulders in front of the bar. All right. Now, how do you say that differently? Like, how many ways can you say shoulder slightly in front of the bar? Here's 5 of them. shoulders over toes. So shoulders are probably over your toes, depending how big your feet are, right? Armpits in line with the bar. Here's the armpit. It's in line with the bar. Nipples in line with the bar. The nipples are under there somewhere. Nipples in line with the bar. Hands behind the shoulders. So the hands are here and the shoulders are there. So hands are slightly behind the shoulders. Arms angle back to the body. See, arms are angling back towards the body. They're not in a dead straight line down. Okay? So that's 5 different ways that you can say the same thing. And if you notice, they're mainly body parts and mainly actions, directions, or positions. So if you look at the deadlift setup position, shoulders slightly in front of the bar. That's a body part, and this is a position slightly in front of the bar. Oh, sorry. Shoulders over toes. Shoulders is the body part, and then over is the position, and it's over another body part. Armpits in line with the bar. Armpits, body part, position, and then the object. Body part, position, object. Body part, position, body part. Body part, position, body part. So you can see that it's always going to be a body part or an object and a position, essentially. All right. So that's how we can come up with different ways to say the same thing. And the only way you can do this and figure it out is by getting yourself in that position and saying, where's my body part? Where is it relative to another body part? Or where is it relevant to an object? Okay. So that's what you got to think about. So body part, position, body part, position, object. See, that's the way you got to think. Or it could be object, position, body part, you know. It could be bar in line with armpits. So you can go that way as well. Okay. All right. So that's creative language. It's as simple as that, but as difficult as that. And the only way to get better at it is by practicing. And that's what your homework is. Okay, so this is what your homework is going to be. This is going to be all outside of class practice. I want you to really sit down and I want you to physically think about it and write things down or type things out or whatever. Get up into your position and feel it out, right? Get really creative with it and then just start throwing them into your class. Okay, you don't want to overload your class with all these different things. Like you don't want to have 5 different ways to say a new thing. Like it's throw one in every now and again and mix it up a little bit. But just notice if you're saying the same thing all the time. And if you're saying the same thing all the time, it's going to get boring for you and it's going to get boring for your athletes. So then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to use something new today. So I'm going to give you an exercise here to start practicing that process so you can start to think about it outside the box. For the alliteration, the real life and the graphic cues, you can use examples that you're going to be coaching over the next few days or week. And you can think about what am I coaching? What do I want to focus on? And how can I use an alliteration to do that? Or what can I use a real life example? I don't want to use all 14 of them in the next class. That would just be overkill, far too much. All right. So here's what I want you to do. Your homework is literally just a post on Facebook. I want you to post the following to the comment section of the Facebook post for this video. You're going to say, what stood out for you most with this training? So just write down what stood out for you most with this training and write that down. Then I want you to have 4 alliteration examples. Alliteration, remember, they start with the same letter or sound in adjacent words. So remember the Peter Piper example. Okay. 5 real life references. So the real life references is carrying the shopping, pushing a car, looking over the neighbor's fence. So I want you to start thinking about real life references that you can bring into your class for a specific point of performance. So what I don't want you to do, sorry, just to be clear here, is I don't want you to just write down 5 real life references. And like an obvious one that we hear all the time is putting something on the shelf, top shelf, or putting your bag in the overhead locker. Like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, but what is that relevant to? What movement or what point of performance is that relevant to in a class? Like if you're putting something into the top shelf, the object is out in front here, right? So what object goes up there like that? Like if you're doing wall touches rather than wall ball throws, because you're not going to throw something onto the top shelf, right? You're going to place it. So if you're doing wall touches at that angle, then it's relevant, right? So I want you to think about what are the real life references that you can use that are relevant to movements or points of performance that you can link in to help your coaching, not just random things to throw in as you're coaching. Like they're not wise. I don't want them to be wise. Like why we train is so that we can sit on the toilet seat, like independently. Sorry, get in and out of bed without help as we get older. Like they're all like, yeah, that's why I train. I don't want them to be wise. I want them to be real life references that you can use to emphasize your coaching a little bit more and support your coaching. 5 graphic cues. So like the nipples of headlights. That's going to be a graphic one. What else did I say? The train tracks, was that one? No, that was a real life reference. Graphic cue, sorry. Oh yeah, crush baby's hand, crush the nut in your butt, and then the body is an arrow. So they're like graphics. You can put ideas. I can put pictures in my head when you say these things, and then I can replicate it in the workout, or I can replicate it with the point of performance. And then the last one, this is a little bit of a tough one, right? So you're going to pick 3 separate movements. So for instance, wall ball, pull up, snatch. There's 3 movements. You're going to pick 1 point of performance for each. So in the wall ball, I'm going to pick something about the feet, let's say. And on the pull up, I'm going to focus on the pull over the bar, the pull of the elbow, getting over the bar. And then on the snatch, I'm going to focus on the triple extension, let's just say, right? So they're the 3 points of performance that I want to coach. Now I want you to think about 5 different ways to say each thing. So if you're looking at the pull of the pull-up, what are 5 different ways you can say the same thing? Okay, so for this one, you're going to have 15 answers. So you'll see 15, 5, 20, 25, 24, 25 different answers written on Facebook. 1, what stood out for you most in training? Another 4 for alliteration. Another 5 for real life references. Another 5 for graphic cues. And then another 15 for the same way to say different things. Okay. If you have any question on this, drop me a message directly. Or actually, if you have a question on it, put it in the Facebook group under this video so that everybody can see the question and everybody gets the same answer. All right, that is this week is going to be, when you get through this and you start to implement it in your classes, this is going to be a game changer for how interesting your classes are going to be. Your athletes are going to show so much more engagement because of what you're saying is different. It's going to make your coaching so much more interesting for you to write your class plans. It is very difficult, but once you get into the swing of it and you start to figure it out and you start to understand how to do it, you're going to absolutely nail this. All right? Enjoy.